We are going to talk about Module 6 in EDU 350. Um, so, Module 6 is inclusive and effective learning activities. Our learning outcomes, we're going to describe key considerations when designing inclusive learning activities. We're going to create sample learning activities that align with specific curriculum goals. And then we're going to explain how the designed activities address diverse learning needs. So essentially in this module, you're going to be thinking about what makes learning activities effective for our students and what do we need to consider when planning learning activities. So, effective planning should align with learning objectives. It needs to be logically sequenced, cater to diverse needs, promote active learning, maintain student success, and use templates and tools for organization. I will also say that effective activity planning also needs to be properly assessed to see if students met that learning objective. So, in your reading, you have this article, Activity Planning for Developing Engaging Activities for Diverse Learners by Yang Li. And in this article, you are going to understand what makes an activity engaging and effective. You're going to learn how to align activity, sequence activity, meet diverse learning needs, and use templates. So we'll go more into that. So the first thing is designing engaging activities, right? We want active, not passive student learning. So we want learning by doing. Active learning helps to motivate students and promotes higher order thinking skills. So speaking of higher order thinking skills, this has to do with Bloom's taxonomy. So I have a video in this presentation of Bloom's taxonomy that explains it more, but essentially Bloom's taxonomy is a hierarchy. So it's a taxonomy, so it's a hierarchy of thinking. So essentially remembering, right, is the first hierarchy of thinking. It's the baseline. So these, identifying, locating, memorizing these content, this is the baseline. Then it goes more, right? So it's just getting knowledge. Then we're just memorizing facts, right? Then it's comprehension. So now you're not just memorizing. You're able to give examples, you're able to change, you're able to match, transform. So, for example, knowledge, right, remembering would be memorizing addition facts, right? You're able to memorize 2 plus 2 is 4. Comprehension, right, level 2 of the hierarchy, comprehension. Now you're able to maybe give examples of other numbers that equal 4, right? So now you're able to say 3 plus 1 is 4 and 1 plus 3 is 4 as well. So now you have it shows again this higher understanding of this addition concept. Application is the next one. So now in application, you're applying, you're changing, you're modifying. So you're doing all of these things. So this is the next one. You're solving, right? So now you know the different factors, right, that equal 4. Now you're solving word problems, for example. So it's a little bit more complicated. You're applying your mathematical knowledge. Then you have analysis is the next one. So again, it's a hierarchy. So it's getting a little bit harder and harder on your brain when you go up. Then you have analysis is the next one. So you're able to analyze, distinguish, research, point out, order, right? So now, not only are you able to do word problems, but now you're able to distinguish, right, in your word problems, you're able to analyze the word problems and distinguish between addition and subtraction. So now I can say, okay, it is an addition subtraction word problem, it is a subtraction word problem, and so again, it's a little bit harder. And then synthesis is the next one, and then evaluation is the next one. So synthesis has to do with considering, weighing, solving, judging, evaluating, and then evaluation, you're adding, developing, originating. So even let's say designing. So now maybe in content, maybe I'm creating my own word problems here. in creation, right? In the last one, evaluation, now I'm creating my own word problems using my mathematical knowledge. So it goes all the way from memorization and recognition all the way through the hierarchy of learning into your being able to use this information that you memorized to actually um, create your own original thinking. So when we are teaching or considering learning activities for students, right, we want to think about Bloom's taxonomy, this hierarchy. We don't want everything to just be in this first box of just memorization, right? We want to go through and have students experience every level of thinking throughout our unit. And then in this, I love this visual because this is really helpful to make objectives. So where it says content, that's the content objectives. Where it says language functions, that's a language objective. So then here's some examples of objectives using the different levels of Bloom's taxonomy. The next thing is aligning. So the first part, right, was having higher order thinking skills when we are in active learning. The next thing is aligning activities to your objectives. So remember, we want our objectives to be SMART, and we want to think about, right, the English language learners as well, and what language lessons might need. So for example, including the language of math, the language of reading, etc. Different types of activities such as games, simulations, projects, experiments, and discussions. So you also want to vary the types of activities. Then we want to think of the sequence of activities. So we have our engaging introduction, which usually we always start with activating prior knowledge and setting our objectives. So you always want to start with, for example, today we are going to be saying your objectives. So today we are going to be identifying the character and setting of the story, right? And then, so now I said my objective, and then we want to activate prior knowledge. So what do we know about characters? What is a character? What is a setting? What are some of your favorite books? What are the characters in your favorite books, right? So now I said my objective, I activated prior knowledge. Then you want development. So you want to present the content and facilitate practice. So now this is where, as a teacher, I am modeling for them, right? I'm modeling for them and using the gradual release of responsibility to teach my objective of character, of identifying the character in the setting in the book that we're reading. Then I have the conclusion, which is reviewing the key points and assessing understanding. So now we've read the book, we've talked about the character and setting. So now I say, okay, today you're going to go off, and in your books today, I want you to try to find the character and the setting and fill out this exit ticket and tell me who are the characters and what's the setting of your book. And then maybe I do a metacognitive assessment where I have them do a thumbs up, thumbs side, thumbs down about how they feel about the topic, or if they need more support, for example. And then finally, using templates and tools. When we think of templates and tools, it's what are our lesson planning templates look like, different graphic organizers we could use, such as mind maps and flowcharts, things like Google Classroom or Kahoot for engagement purposes. I have some more examples here of different graphic organizers like Venn diagrams, flowcharts. Here's a taxonomy, concept map. So these are all things you could use to support students for visual aids. Also thinking about adding sentence starters and word banks to your graphic organizers. And then when we're thinking about varying activities, we also want to think about the different types of learners that we have in our classroom. So we want to be able to teach something in multiple ways to appeal to all the different types of learners. So one example I like to give is when I taught sight words, when I taught first grade, I used every single learning style to teach sight words. So there was a visual. So we had poems for the sight words were in a poem that the students could read so they could see them. There was an auditory, right? So we would have chants. So for example, if it was and, right, we would say A-N-D, and, A-N-D, and, to help them spell the sight word. Physical kinesthetic, we might do like a little hand motion or a little cheer with our arms that show so that students can remember how to spell it. Or we might do it in sign language so the students can remember how to spell it. And so we might sign A-N-D. So that is another way that they can make that connection with how to spell and. We might, they would work with a partner, for example. So they could work with a partner where it's social, where they spell the word. They have to like write the word with their finger on their partner's back. They have to write the word with their finger on their partner's arm. Solitary, where they would work alone, where they would have a copy of the poem and they could color it and write the word inside the poem. There was blank spaces where they could write the word. So you have, so I would go through every single one of these essentially just to teach each and every sight word. And that really helped to make sure that all students, right, all different types of learners were being identified. So when we're teaching a lesson, we really want to make sure that we're doing it in a way where we're using multiple learning styles so that we're making sure we're supporting as many students as we can in the one lesson. And then finally, in your PLC group, you are watching the video about this first grade literacy lesson, and you're going to identify the curriculum goals, watch for teaching strategies, and propose learning activities. You can use this opportunity to share creative approaches, exchange feedback, and deepen your understanding of effective literacy instruction, in elementary and early elementary. And then for your for your assignment in Module 6, there's a video in there to support you, but essentially your assignment, you are watching the video, doing the engaging lesson checklist, talking about how you can modify the lesson and writing a reflection. But there's also a video to support you.